Good evening. It is day 5 of how to improve communication and build confidence for your teen daughter. I am so sorry. I am so tongue-tied tonight. Welcome to day 5. That was a horrible beginning to our live stream for the evening. Forgive me. I promise you tonight's topic is good nonetheless. Tonight's topic, how to respond and not react to your teen daughter. I touched on this a little yesterday and I told you it was coming. This topic actually came from one of my teen clients herself. I spoke to her last week when I first got the idea for this series, and she gave me the suggestion. She said, "Hey, Ms. Tahira, why don't you talk about what parents can do so that they don't freak out and get so angry?" Some of the stuff we talked about yesterday, right? Can you tell them what they can do instead? And so this was inspired by one of my clients, and I actually bounced some ideas off of her, got some insight from her, and I'm really excited to share it with you all tonight. So before I get started, in case you're joining us for the first time, my name is Tahira Bell. I'm a life coach for teen girls. I help girls build confidence, develop leadership skills, and improve their decision-making skills as they're navigating these often very challenging teenage years. I am on a mission to inspire girls to stand up and shine, and as their coach, I help them discover who they are on a deeper level and really get to know themselves and share who they are really from the inside out. And so I love to see them figure out exactly what they can do with who they are and how they can really make a unique contribution to the world once they embrace exactly who they are. All of my clients set very different goals, and my job as their coach is to help them accomplish them. So for these 12 days, my job is to work with you all as parents, as teen girls, and help you improve your communication with them and learn how to communicate with them in a way to build their confidence. So thank you for those of you who've been messaging me. I've got some great ideas from those of you I've heard from. Please feel free, as always, to just drop a comment in the comments below if you have any questions, or message me with any questions, concerns, anything you need clarification on. I'm here for you. So yesterday, after I went back over my notes, I realized that I didn't give you one of the steps. I actually missed the 8th step. So for yesterday, we were talking about the 10 things that teenage girls wish you would know, but may not tell you themselves. And so I promised I would bring it to you tonight. And what it is that she really thinks it's hypocritical when you tell her not to worry about what other people think, but then she sees you worrying about what other people think. And I'll tell you 2 instances, one that actually came up last week with a client. She literally was telling me how her mom always tells her, don't worry about what other people think, be your own person. That's just what we do. We always tell our kids that, right? But in this particular instance, she said, my mom was really stressing. I overheard her on the phone complaining about why she didn't get invited to a party. She was invited last year, or, I don't know all the details, but it was about this holiday party invite, and her mom was so stressed. And she was like, what I don't understand is if that were me, my mom would tell me not to worry about it. And if it wasn't meant for me to be at the party, I wouldn't be invited. So here's this teen girl from the outside watching her mom stress and obsess over not being invited to a party, but she knew that that's not what she'd want. That's not what she'd want her. Oh my goodness, that's not what her mother would want for her to do. Excuse me. So what kind of a message does that send, right? That's a huge disconnect. Let me tell you another way it shows up. Body image. That's something we all know is a concern with our girls. Well, if you're telling your daughter to love your body, embrace your curves, whatever the case may be, but then she sees you in the mirror obsessing over the way you look or don't look, or what you wish you looked like, or what you want to look like but don't and can't, and just all the things that we sometimes are guilty of. And it's not just moms, okay? I've heard dads do the same thing. So what are you saying to her if she sees you not embracing your body, not loving your body, not taking care of your body? Again, it's a conflict, right? There's a disconnect. So I'm going to move on to tonight's topic, but before I just let that one go, the bottom line is, let's really pay attention to what we're saying, what we're asking her to do. Let's do a, check within ourselves and make sure that we're doing the same thing. Practicing what you preach is a lot more effective and will go a much, further way with earning your daughter's respect and wanting her to be closer to you than, do as I say, not as I do. Does that make sense? All right, we are going to move on. That was from yesterday. My apologies for leaving it out of the conversation. Tonight's topic, we're going to dive in. It's how to respond and not act. And so let me tell you where this came from. I had a client tell me, I really want to open up to my mom. I really want to have a closer relationship with her. I wish we could talk more, but every time I try to tell her something that happened at school or that's going on in my life, she freaks out. And I hear it all the time. Girls will say, I don't want to say this or that because I know she'll get angry or she won't understand. And what that does is it makes her not want to open up to you. It makes her not want to share. This is what leads to the, hey, how's your day conversation? And she's just like, it was fine. Which, by the way, side note, I hate that question. Just another little bonus tip for night. How was your day? Is just not the question to ask if you really want to know how was her day. We could talk more about that later if you want to, but for now, I really want to explain why it's important to really learn how to respond to your daughter versus just react based on whatever emotion is coming for you, okay? Let me just paint you a picture of what happens. Now, whether or not that's the intent is up for debate, but this is the reality of what happens. When you're a parent and you react to whatever it is, and we all react to different things, we all have different triggers, right? But when we react in a way that is very emotional, meaning we are angry or we get really fearful, you could get really, afraid and panic about something. When you're just really hurt, even if you just respond in a way where you're just overly disappointed and sad and hurt or humiliated, any of those really intense emotions, your teenager is just going to interpret it as crazy. It will lead to one of two things. Either she'll withdraw and just not open up or not share, or if she's the type that is, the fight back kind of type and, tit for tat, it just continuously increase the conflict until it escalates and escalates. And then you're just kind of going back and forth. And that really doesn't ultimately help anyone when that happens. Okay. So on the flip side, when you see a parent who, maybe this is a parent who's just more calm by nature, right? Just the laid back type, or who does yoga, or someone who's maybe, is used to having therapy to the point where they're very aware of their emotions. Maybe they meditate. They're, the type of parent who's very intentional about being self-aware and knowing what the emotional state is within themselves, okay? That type of a parent tends to, I'm not saying always, right? There's always exceptions, but that type of parent still feels the same way. anger or fear or whatever that emotion is, that type of parent still feels it, but they're able to stay calm. They're able to keep their composure. And so what that communicates is that instead of letting their emotions control them, they are actually in control of their emotions. And so that's a more comfortable situation to be in, especially for a teen girl. And so what happens is that person's more approachable. It's a more safe conversation. And so those relationships tend to have much closer, much better communication than some that can be a little more, volatile, for lack of a better word. Okay. So that's the reasoning behind why I wanted to talk to you all about this tonight, okay? And now I'm going to just kind of shift gears and give you some practical ways that you can respond more thoughtfully rather than just react based on whatever emotion comes up when, say, your teen is disrespectful, right? Because let's just face it, that's usually what's at the root of it. Something happened at school that was just unacceptable, or she was disrespectful, whatever it is, you first have to be aware of your triggers, okay? So I talk to girls about this all the time because what triggers you is different than what triggers another parent. What triggers you might be completely different than what triggers your teen or your spouse. So you really have to know yourself. So for me, I know that if I'm tired or if I'm stressed, I'm much less likely to respond to in a calm way. So I have to know that about myself. If you know that you fought traffic for an hour to get home and you hate traffic and it just takes you up to here, you have to know that that's going to feed into whatever interaction you're going to have with your daughter when you get home. So be aware of it and be mindful, because you don't want to bring your own stuff into the conversation if you're able to have that conversation happen, okay? Now, some practical things that you can actually do in the moment. So first, remember, know your triggers. Already assess, what kind of state of mind am I in before I'm sitting down in front of my teen daughter. Then, when you're actually having the conversation, when she says that thing, whatever it is, right? The story about, the drinking at the party that she may share that you're like, what? You do that already? You're only in 8th grade. Like, whatever it may be, pause. I talk to my girls a lot about inserting a pause when they need to, because sometimes you just need a minute to look inside and just check in with yourself and say, what am I feeling right now? Because normally what we do is we focus on what was just said to us. We focus on what our daughter just told us, right? And then we react to it. But if you take a minute to pause and really focus on you and think, how am I feeling? Check in with yourself. Just doing that can deflate what could be a really intense response, okay? And then you're going to roll your eyes because, they do when I tell them this too. Breathe. It's simple. It sounds so cliche, but it is the truth. It is huge. It is important. There is nothing better to do to slow down our emotions and really help you relax and get grounded. There's nothing better than just taking a deep breath. Breathe. You've heard that before. It works. And then you ultimately have to make a judgment call, right? You have to make a decision. You have to, as a parent, also trust your gut. So is this something that needs to be addressed right now? Or would it be better, or even would it just be okay to wait until your emotional state is in a place where you can communicate more effectively. So if you are on 10, you are angry, you feel like you're about to explode because she didn't get a good grade on a test, or she made a bad decision with a friend, whatever it is that just sets you off, right? Will it matter if you give yourself 10 minutes before you address it? But again, that's the judgment call. That's the decision that you have to make as the parent. Some things absolutely need to be addressed immediately in real time. I get that. Okay. Now let me say this. I don't know a teenager that won't provoke you at some point. Teens are gonna provoke you. It's just it's a natural progression of their journey from child to adult. Think about it. They're gonna challenge you. They're trying to figure out a way, not always the right way, to assert themselves. They're trying to build and gain this independence and ultimately, break away from you as the child, right? So that parent-child relationship changes once it becomes parent-teen. So your teen is going to rebel a little and provoke you some, but that's also developmentally appropriate, that she's really trying to find herself. That said, I strongly believe, and I say this all the time, you still have to be the parent, okay? So if we're talking about something like disrespect, being respectful is the expectation. By no means am I saying to excuse the behavior and just ignore it and say that it's okay. That's not my point here, okay? My point is simply, can you, as the parent, as the adult, as the one who's been there, done that, can you take control of your response? Can you be more thoughtful with your response? Can you control your emotions and not just react? Does that make sense? Let me know. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know if this makes sense for you. If you have any questions, let's talk, okay? Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, my daughter can be so disrespectful. I get it. That's different for every girl. Some girls roll their eyes. Some girls slam the door. Some girls have just, these nasty gestures that they may make, right? Some of them pop off at the mouth, right? Whatever your daughter's, disrespectful behavior is, may vary from person to person, right? But there are ways that you can still expect her to be respectful and then address it when she's not respectful. But first, you have to make sure that she is very clear on what you consider to be disrespectful, because again, that can vary too. In her mind, she might not even think she's being disrespectful. So not necessarily when there's conflict, right? But there has to be a time when you all are talking and you are very clear when you let her know, this is my expectation. This is what we expect. And then be specific. When you roll your eyes, it's disrespectful. When you talk back to me or have an attitude, it's disrespectful. But you have to tell her exactly what, the attitude is. What is she doing? Is it her tone of voice? Is it the words she's using? Is it that she's not making eye contact? Like, what is it that she's doing? And be specific so that she knows, okay? So one other thing that you can do, here's another idea for you. If she's being disrespectful to you, if she's venting, if she's overly emotional, if she's just in a bad mood, right? And we talked about that a little bit yesterday, how sometimes as parents, you may take on her mood. But like I told you yesterday, just because she's in a bad mood does not mean you have to be, okay? So that's important to remember. But let's just say, maybe she's in a funky mood, okay? You can give her some space. One mistake, and I hate to say the word mistake. I say it kind of loosely because it's well intended, right? We're not doing this as parents to hurt our daughters. We just want to help them, but it doesn't really work when you try to fix or change her mood. Okay? What ends up happening is you say something like, "Are you okay?" And that's good to ask, right? You're concerned. You want her to know you're concerned. But then if she's not ready to talk about it, or she's just in a bad mood, what happens? She says something rude, or she does something disrespectful, or she walks out the room and rolls her eyes, or just snaps back at you when, you didn't even do anything, right? And so then what does that lead to? You, as the parent, are now frustrated or angry. And then there's the confrontation when it may not have had to be that way, okay? So sometimes if she's just in that bad mood, give her some space. Ultimately, she needs to learn how to process her feelings, how to work through her own emotions, how to simmer down if she's angry. She's got to be able to handle her feelings and get a grasp on her emotions anyway. It's not your job to do that for her. It's your job to be there for her, but it's not your job to change her mood, okay? Sometimes she can, in 5 or 10 minutes, a completely different person. I'm sorry, my son just walked into the room, so I hope you didn't just hear that. I apologize. All right, what else can you do? When you have the opportunity, and as often as you can, let her know she is valued. Your daughter, when she does come to you, when she does talk, even if she's just complaining, if all she has to say is 10 complaints and she listens, "Mom, you did this and this and this and that, and Dad, I can't stand it when you this and this and this and that," and she has a whole list, right? And it's probably ridiculous. Like, you think that, like, that's something you're really going to complain about? Keep that to yourself, okay? You really need to listen. We talked about listening, right? Give her that opportunity to say what's on her mind and actually listen to her when she's complaining even. She really needs to know that you don't mind taking the time to listen. She really needs to know that you value her. She really needs to know that you can hold space for her, that she has a very special place within the family, and that your time, because we all know how precious time is, but that your time is not wasted when it's with her, right? That you are happy to give her that time if she needs it. She has to know that, okay? Now, let me say this, and I said it a second ago, and then I'll wrap up for tonight. Be the parent. Do not be afraid to be the parent. One of the benefits of actually responding in a more thoughtful manner and not just, reacting out of emotion is that you can gather yourself and you can make sure that whatever the consequence is, or however you may need to, address a certain situation and discipline your teen, or just enforce the rules of your household, you can do that from a level-headed place rather than a heightened emotional state. Does that make sense? You really have to still enforce the consequence. It's okay. And The more your teen is aware of the fact that there are consequences for her behavior or for her actions when she does mess up, she'll receive that. I love to suggest to parents, just as another side note, that you talk to your teen about them ahead of time. If she knows what's coming when she, makes a mistake or messes up, when it's time to actually dish out the consequence, she already knows. She already knows. And it helps her because she can expect it. Sometimes as parents, we're just afraid to be the parent. Don't be afraid to parent your teen. You will not regret it. And the last thing I have to say for tonight is that if by chance you do something that you regret, forgive yourself. We are all human. Sometimes you may overreact. Sometimes you may let something slide just because you're tired and don't want to be bothered. Whatever the case may be, forgive yourself when you need to. We make mistakes as parents too. Okay. Again, whatever you're expecting of her is what you expect. Don't feel like you have to let that go. But always make sure that she's clear on what the expectation is. And then do what you got to do. All right? If you don't have any more questions, I am going to let you get back to your Saturday. Again, this is 12 days of communication and confidence. My name is Tahira Bell. Tonight's topic was all about how to respond to your daughter in a way that would improve connection and build closeness rather than push her away and make her afraid to come to you with what matters. And listen, the little things count. If she can come to you with the little stuff, you best believe she's going to come to you with the big stuff. That's what you want, right? Isn't that the whole point when you really think about it? You want her to come to you with the big stuff, okay? I can't wait to see you tomorrow. I will see you tomorrow for day 6. Have a good night.